to the American Football Institute Sports Channel with former National Football League defensive tackle and now an NFL consultant, Chris Mamalanga.
Hello, family. This is Chris Mamalanga, your host with the American Football Institute show, our weekly show. Tonight, we have a very special guest. Not only is he a good friend of mine and a former teammate from the University of Kansas, but he's also a great human being with a great story that he'll be able to share some of his experience as a high-level athlete, as a student athlete, and as a business owner and entrepreneur. Please help me welcome to our show none other than Mr. Kevin Polian. Kevin, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for making time. I know that your time is valuable, and I won't take too much of it, I promise. But I know you have a lot inside of you that you can share with our audience that may help somebody's journey, their football journey, to success in American football. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Kevin, and please share a little bit about your background and kind of where you're from and how you ended up as a high-level recruit and a member of the University of Kansas football team.
Well, I am an actual military brat, born and most part raised in Tucson, Arizona. And my father's from the Bronx in New York. My mother's from Southern California, and I'm currently in Lawrence, Kansas. So it's pretty much in the middle of where they're both from. Went to high school freshman year in Tucson, ended up moving to Wichita, Kansas for my sophomore, junior, senior year, mainly because my dad had a job opportunity that couldn't turn down. I can assure you when I was a sophomore, was not very happy about it, but it was the right decision. Ended up coming to the University of Kansas. Ironically, you were a contributing factor, but yes, and I'm still here. Been a long time since I played football, but it's still part of my life. And any ex-athlete, whether it's high school or college in particular, because sadly, we're one percenters, and you're one percenters of the one percenters. But here, I have no complaints, man. None, really.
Definitely. Can you kind of share with us like your recruiting process and some of the schools that actually offered you? Because I know you had some pretty good offers coming out of high school to be a Division I athlete, scholarship athlete at that.
I don't come from, I know my last name doesn't preach that. I just played sports because it kept me out of trouble. And the irony in all of it, my coaches dictated more than my parents did. They were supportive. They were there every step of the way. My mother dealt with the recruiting more than I did. It was overwhelming, honestly. One day you're filling out a little postcard of this is this, and this, and then you start getting bombarded with letters. Then coaches show up. Then your coaches from high school ask you questions, and then they're like, okay. Then everybody wants to know where you're going to go play football at or where you're going to college and so forth. And even though I was a defensive lineman, I actually was a pretty decent baseball player. It helps that you're 6'5" and left-handed, but yes. It was kind of overwhelming at times, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. Off the top of my head is conversations I had with head coaches. There were several schools. KU was one, K-State, Wyoming, Colorado State. My first actual scholarship offer, which was honestly kind of cool, was from Coach Alvarez at Wisconsin. This is before they were Wisconsin. Everybody thinks they are now. And I actually took a recruiting trip there. But to be bluntly honest, of the 7, even though we were only allowed to schedule 5, I took 2. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, but it was way overwhelming. And not because of me personally, just everybody had a bunch of questions, and I really didn't have a lot of answers.
Right. I can definitely relate to how overwhelming that recruiting process is. And, you were able to go to the University of Kansas, and that's where we met. And we've become very good friends and great friends, actually. We've been to several countries. I think, let me just think off the top of my head. We've been to Mexico, we've been to Fiji, we've been to Tonga, New Zealand, of course, several states in the U.S. and
Don't forget
so I
Vegas.
feel like, oh yeah, Vegas can be another country, right?
Uh-huh.
But I feel like through our relationship, I've been able to learn a lot about business and kind of like your tenacity when it came to entrepreneurship. And can you kind of talk about your journey? Because I know for you, uh, you had some injuries and things like that. And can you kind of share with us kind of how that affected your journey and things like that as a scholarship athlete?
Well, ironically, everybody sees things on TV, and I signed in Wichita, Kansas with two other guys that are actually still very good friends. And they show up with a very thick contract. And I was blessed that my dad, he worked in human resources and elevated himself to a very high level in corporate America, aviation in particular. He actually read the contract before he let me sign it. And I'm sitting there as an 18-year-old kid, just want to get it over with and go hang out with my friends. And thankfully he did. And it was kind of one of those moments in my life that sticks out, because I can't tell you how many other athletes because D1 athletes, we're not really that big a fraternity in the grand scheme of things. But it was kind of one of those that it kind of stood out. And I was always kind of entrepreneurial. And when I went on my Wisconsin recruiting trip, because ultimately I wanted to be an architect, I was always kind of an entrepreneur. Well, I'll call it a hustler. Just want to make some money. But I wanted to be an architect. And at the time when I was recruited on my recruiting trip, one of the perks is you sit down with the head of the department or somebody pretty high up in the department that you want to major in. And you have breakfast with them and they talk to you. And I cannot tell you his name. I guess I should have Googled it. He had a real conversation with me and he says, "Hey, listen, it's not that you're not smart enough, but to fulfill your athletic obligations as well as your academic obligations in being an architect, not saying it's impossible, but it is very, very challenging." I took that as code as no way in heck. So obviously I changed my degree, but that's part of the recruiting process. And I wish I could honestly met that guy. It was one of those life-altering moments that I thought, you just go to college, everything's easy. And he actually mapped it out for me in great detail, which I'm sure if the head coach and the recruiting person knew he did that, they'd be pissed. But I do appreciate that for what it's worth.
Definitely. Like when it comes to the different departments, you're going to get one messaging from the sports and the football office, and that messaging may not match with the heads of a certain department, right?
Well, and yes. And I've never been very good at being politically correct. Let's be honest. You of all people know that, and anybody that actually is watching this that knows me knows that. But I will tell you one of the things that I that's challenging is you go to college and you go in, everybody wants you, everybody kisses your butt, everybody thinks you're king, whatever. And when you show up, everybody that steps foot on that field was all something. Then you go to class and you're tired and all these other things, and you're in a class of 200 people. Professor doesn't care you play a sport. They care you actually do the work. And it was honestly overwhelming. And I don't even know if we're allowed to say this, but I owe got my stuff together to a guy by the name of Paul Busker. He would have those one-on-one conversations, And all he cared about was, what are you going to do after sports? And what do you plan on doing to make sure that you can achieve that? That's not, I don't think, what every athlete goes through. And I personally find that scary. I come from a family that has access to stuff, and I don't mean loaded and rich, but you got the famous uncle, you got my dad, and my dad was as hard-nosed as they come. I always ask questions, and that's the hardest part when you're a young kid that news people call, coaches call, and then all of a sudden you show up and you're like, all right, here I am. And you look around and you're like, holy crap, I don't know if I'm as good as these guys, or this guy's better than me, or I'm better than him. And then you got to go to class. Then you got to go and deal with all the other things. And I will say this, my father helped me with that because of his realistic approach. When you're young, you're like, oh man, you're invincible. You're like, oh my goodness, nobody's going to touch me. This is great. This is always going to be like this. Well, he was pretty good at kicking the stool out and bringing you down to planet Earth, which helped me more than I could ever thank him for.
Well, I'm sure that that grit that your dad, from his military background, as well as being from, did you say he's from Brooklyn or from
Bronx?
What part of New York is well, anybody who knows New York knows that Bronx, you gotta be tough to take care of business in the Bronx. So I'm sure some of that rubbed off on you for sure.
One of the few men on this planet that scared me. I'll leave it at that. And he's a lot smaller than me.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your background. And we have a couple of questions that we're going to post up. We'll try to get through them. Well, about 5 questions. And then at the end, you'll have an opportunity to give your big three tips on someone out there who's a prospective football player.
Only 3?
Well, you can go beyond 3, but I try not to put too much pressure on folks with too many bits of advice. But without any more delay, Kevin, I'd like to get into our questions, please. And let's start off with the first one. How has football in general and becoming a Division I scholarship American football athlete impacted your life?
Immensely. Start to finish. I remember my sophomore year, get the first letter. Then all of a sudden it escalated into what it was in the whole recruiting process. But then you go to college and it becomes, sorry, NCAA doesn't want me to say it, a full-time job. That doesn't even count class. But it taught team. I got to be around individuals from all aspects of life from all over the United States. They were my brothers. We went to war together. And then it opened doors. I mean, literally being a Division I football player on your resume, you walk into a room, we're as egotistical as I've known for. The fact is if you get a Division I football, you're less, you make up less than 1% of the people that want to be that particular year and any other year. It opens doors. It opens doors to successful people and people that can help you and provide other opportunities because, yeah, you worked hard. You were good enough to be part of a team sport. But at the same time, it's one of those things that not many people can do. And there are so many stress levels above and beyond that most people don't understand. So you get to go and talk to somebody that most people would dream of being able to talk to. And the guy wants to pick your brain. Granted, it's going to be about football and sports and so forth, but he's also going to allow you the opportunity to pick his brain, which I can assure you, I picked their brain a lot, and it had nothing to do with sports. But it opens doors. It opens doors that most people, you could work your entire life, really, really, really bust your butt and never get the opportunity. because you played a sport, people will talk to you.
So what I'm gathering from your statement, Kevin, and your answer is that being part of the 1 percentile as a Division One football athlete, scholarship athlete, it's not just about going to the NFL. It's about the networks and the people in high level business that you have access to. Is that kind of a paraphrase, a proper paraphrase?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There are a lot of individuals out there that you talk to them and they're excited to talk to you because you do something or you've done something they were never able to do. And you know, when I was younger, I was an idiot. As I've gotten older, I try to be humble and downplay it. But realistically, yeah, I mean, you can walk in the door and you say, yeah, I did this, this, and this. They might have had an agenda as far as a conversation. They wanted to talk about whether it be an interview, not an interview, like a job interview or just something in general. And then all of a sudden, they want to know what it was like. They want to live in your shoes because not many people do. Let's be honest, the media sucks at portraying what it's actually like. They give you the very few. I mean, outside of athletes are invited into the inner circle of being included in the stories that we can tell. And it's kind of cool, actually. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming, but most of the time it's just kind of, you get to just have a conversation and they're asking questions and they're like, wait, really? It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of how it is. Well, how come the media doesn't portray it? Well, it's not like we're just standing up and saying, hey guys, look at what we do every day. NCAA does not allow that.
I'm not sure if it was you that kind of did the equation of adding up all the hours. Adding up all the hours that you put in.
I don't think I'm allowed to say his last name, but it was during 2 days, 3 days. I don't know, whatever we called them. We sat in I was in his apartment and he had just gotten his scholarship paperwork and I was looking at mine. He was out of state. I was in state. And we started calculating the hours. And at that time, we did the math and our scholarship was worth $2.10 an hour. For the record, at that time, minimum wage was $5.35 an hour. So yeah,
in today's dollars, that would be about $6 an hour.
Nah, it's a little bit more than that, but it's still not enough.
More than that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that scholarship is not free. You earned every bit of it through blood, sweat, and tears, meetings, lifting, practice, traveling, the whole nine.
And paying so I can be a normal human being because the medical, once we're done and off the scholarship, they don't cover anything. I get knee injections, not masking agents, but they're not cheap. I've probably spent out of pocket, I'm not talking insurance, out of pocket $20,000 just so I can be a normal dad and human being, that if one of our coaches suffered the same injury, they would have gotten a big check called work comp. So yes, there's more to it than that. And what I mean, there's more to it than that. Everybody sees, and the NCAA has done an amazing job marketing that this is just like great, great, great. Look at this, so forth. But once you're done playing the sport, you're cut off. And the problem with, I can only speak to football. I can't speak to any other sport. I mean, you and I have talked to other athletes and so forth, but ours is pretty violent. Doesn't matter. We're going to have lagging injuries. We're going to have lagging procedures. And if we were employed, we would be compensated for that. Instead, it's completely out of pocket. I'm blessed, and I say that I'm blessed. I was able to utilize being a Division I athlete and become a little bit successful to where I can afford to do that. There's a lot of us that didn't and couldn't. And I find that, I'm trying to find the right word, it pisses me off. But to answer your question, our bodies inflict a lot of damage, and we had fun doing it some days, not all days. But when you get older, those injuries, man, they hurt.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, look, simple tasks like tying your shoe, becomes challenging if you have trouble with a hip. I can speak to that very clearly. And
actually, I think you want to know the truth. I think all ex-football players should be weathermen, because we know when the weather's going to change because our body tells us.
Right. Wow. Great information. Thank you for sharing. Let's go on to our next question, Kev.
Yes, sir.
Are there some topics or concerns that potential D1 American football players and or their parents need to be aware of? And I'm just talking about the whole process of, the dog and pony show is one thing. The amateur status of an American football player is one thing. But is there anything in particular that you might want to share regarding that, the story behind the story when it comes to Division I football?
Well, I mean, I think that honestly, in my opinion, the biggest thing, and I think you of all people know, because I can be a preacher, when you make this decision where you're going, I know the whole transfer portal, that wasn't really even an option for us. It's one of those things. You got to make sure that you feel safe and comfortable where you are deciding to go. But it's not just football. It's got to be that education, because you're killing yourself, not literally, but you're damaging your body. I can't compare it, and I was never in the military. The damage we do to our bodies, we don't know until later. But you're given an opportunity, and you got to make sure you feel comfortable, not only just because of football, but getting an education. You've got to be able to strive outside of just the sport you're playing. 1% get Division I. I don't know. I didn't look it up. Probably 1% actually make it to the NFL. And of the 1%, 3% actually get veteran status, to where they have what at our age back then, we didn't know what a 401k or a retirement plan was. And you're putting your body in harm for sport. I mean, it's a violent sport, but we liked it. I mean, think about it. It was a lot of fun. But you've got to actually make sure that you're not just going after of shooting for the stars. I'm going to be a number 1 draft pick, top 10. I'm going to take care of my family. You've got to utilize not only what the athletic department provides you, but any university you go to, they have programs for every single student. You should be looking into those. I'm not sure the football team or the athletic department's telling you to. I'm telling you, you should. Make friends outside of the football program, because once you become a Division I football player or Division I athlete in general, you're invited into a bubble. And if they have their way, you stay in that bubble. As an ex-athlete, I'm telling you, get outside of that bubble. Learn what else is out there. The college experience isn't just playing a sport. It's meeting somebody from another country. It's meeting somebody that's going to be a doctor. It's meeting somebody that actually has aspirations, and they probably couldn't throw a football, catch a football, or run the 40 and under 10 flat. But they're still intriguing, interesting, and good people. It's not all about sports. Utilize being an athlete at a very elite level to be able to meet other people from other cultures, other states. That's a cool thing I loved about sports. You look around, you've got all aspects of life on a team, and the grand scheme of things, the people on the team could give a crap less. We're in it together. We fought through it, die for each other kind of stuff. Not literally, but figuratively. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I mean, look, one thing that we all know is that whatever our differences are, when we get into the trenches, when we're in battle, all those differences are set to the side because we have a common goal. And that
Oh yeah.
common goal is to go win a football game, right? And
Or compete, didn't want to lose. Or, I mean, a lot of people don't understand, and the competitive nature of football in general is very high. When you get to a Division I football, I can't speak for the smaller schools, it's very high. And it keeps you on edge and it keeps you driven. At the same time, though, those guys that you went through that with, they're always entrenched for no matter what for the rest of your life. And don't care about skin color, don't care about economic background, don't care about anything. They're your brother.
yeah, I mean, we had guys who came from low income, we had guys who were middle class, we had guys who came from wealthy backgrounds, guys who were different races and different ethnicities, different religious beliefs. But at the end of the day, we came together for a common cause. And I think that's one of the cool things about sports in general, especially a violent sport where there's so much demand on your body and your mind and your spirit, like football.
100% agree, my friend. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. The knee injections, all the other stuff, I wouldn't change it for anything. You asked a question as far as educating from a parent standpoint. Ask the tough questions. Ask anything you want. And if they don't answer the question and to your liking, then maybe that's not the right school for you. I mean, it's the hard part is there's a guy coming into your home that's making more money than most people can ascertain. And I'm just saying, most people. I mean, it's a lot of money telling you how they're going to take care of your kid. Well, ask him how he's going to take care of your kid. Ask him what he's going to do when football doesn't end up. Ask him those hard questions and go that route as far as making a decision. Now, keep in mind, my parents were not part of the process when I decided. That was my mistake. And I will actually say this to athletes, just because you think you know it all and you're invincible or somebody's telling you this, you should sit down and talk to your parents. Because realistically, most of you, your parents were there from the time you could barely walk, cheering, screaming, buying the shoes, buying the cleats, taking you to and from practice and all that other stuff. So they deserve to be part of it. So don't make the mistake I did and just be a dummy.
Well, thank you for saying that. I never really thought about that part because for me, my dad, at least you had a choice. For my dad, he told me where I was going to school, and he said, you're getting.
He had good reasons, though. In his defense, he had some good reasons.
Well, I agree with you, my friend. He said you're getting as far away as possible from your group of friends that you got in all this trouble with, and that's how I ended up in Lawrence, Kansas. But
I'm glad you did, man. I did, and you're part of the reasons I came here. It was more of you got coaches, you got teachers, you got fellow friends. Where you going, man? Where you going? It's like every freaking day. And then you've got the insecurity of, well, they offered me, is they sure, is this what, so forth. And honestly, I chose here, which it was more of, I wanted to stay close to home for my parents so they could actually be part of continuing watching me as they supported me. I mean, mine were not the helicopter parents. They were not, and I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. They weren't those. They were just there cheering and just trying to be supportive. And, if you go far away, in your case, your parents only got to see you a couple times. In my case, they got to see me a lot more. But yours and I's situation a little bit different. Some of us need to go far from home. And if I was in Arizona, I should have came to Kansas too, just for the record. But I just happened to move after my freshman year.
Right. Sweet, sweet. So we'll go on to our next question here. What were some of the other offers? I think you covered this a little bit about. What were some of the schools, the names of the schools that you had Division One scholarship offers out of high school? You said
Uh,
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, I actually took a recruiting trip. It was kind of an eye-opening experience for me. I had a lot of fun. Not gonna lie, had a lot of fun. It was cold. I got my fear of flying from that particular recruiting trip. Um, but Colorado State, a lot of the Big Eight schools. Nebraska, no. Iowa State, I think yes. Colorado State, Wyoming, KU, K-State. Pretty sure Missouri. There was other Big Ten schools like Purdue, I think Indiana. Honestly, it was. By the time that it was one after another, I just kind of zoned out and was trying to just figure out where I wanted to go.
So in that same thread, Kev, can you kind of share with the audience what it's like to go on a recruiting trip? They pay for everything, right? Is it?
They do.
What's that?
They do. I was fortunate. I don't know if everybody's fortunate. I took private planes. I had 7 scheduled. You're only allowed to take 5. Don't schedule 7 like I did. The conversations are not very good when you decide not to go. I
didn't know you took private planes to your recruiting trips. That's pretty cool, man.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, no, I took a private jet to Wisconsin and going to Wichita to KU doesn't really count, but yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And you show up and then they're there to greet you. They give you the VIP tour. You get to meet a lot of new people, different people. It's honestly, for me, it was completely overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll never forget going on my first recruiting trip, and I was always used to ordering from the right side of the menu, which shows the pricing.
No,
So
finish your story because I got to tell you a funny story.
It was typically the chicken that I ordered. If we went to a restaurant, that was the only thing that I could afford, or that we could afford, my family. And we didn't go out very much, but by the time I took my 3rd and 4th trip, I wasn't ordering from the right side of the menu anymore. I was ordering from the left side of the menu, which typically would say something like market price, So I was like a veteran trip taker by my 5th trip. But I'll turn it over to you, Kev.
Well, I only had 2. And, back in those young days, we used to eat a lot. And if you went a long time without eating, you got hungry. And I had never been to a 5-star restaurant. And when I was in Wisconsin, we went to a 5-star restaurant. I didn't understand the menu. I'm simple. I grew up on Roseanne food. My favorite food is meatloaf. And so I'm hungry, dying, starving, and we're ordering food. And it's this fancy stuff, but there wasn't much there. Like you're getting top quality. Now, I appreciate it now that I'm older because I can't eat like that anymore. But you order something, you go, yeah, it's shrimp and something else. Oh, shrimp, I like shrimp. Well, there's 2 shrimp and something else. That was my introduction to 5-star cuisine. And I'm like, okay, where's the rest? Where's the rest? By the time we got done eating, there wasn't enough girth there to make up a Big Mac. And so I'm starved. Thankfully, my recruit, as soon as we left, ordered 2 pizzas, and so I was good to go. But like you, I was very, simplistic, and they took us to a 5-star restaurant where I didn't understand what the menu, it didn't say chicken and shrimp. It had some fancy terminology that I still to this day couldn't even say.
I hear you, man.
Sorry.
Definitely that whole process is definitely an education. And that's kind of the reason why I like to share these stories, because some of these folks, parents been working all their lives to support their family, and all of a sudden their kid ends up being talented in a sport, and they're just pulled right through that dog and pony show. And I'd like for them to get a little bit more meat, um, as far as understanding how the process goes and kind of some of the expectations and things like that. So I appreciate you sharing that. We'll go on to our next question, Kev.
Got it.
You've been very successful in your own right in business with multiple ventures. I personally witnessed that. Um, has your American football experience contributed to your success in business?
Absolutely, it does. Several reasons. One, team. I mean, unless you get lucky and win the Powerball, you're going to build anything. You got to rely on other people. That is the one thing that I always go back to when it comes to sports. You build something, you accomplish stuff with your teammates. You've got some leaders, you've got some, but I mean, it's team. Football taught me that. I know it taught you that too. It also opened opportunities, like we talked about and discussed earlier. I was able to access people that are extremely successful that most people don't have access to, even their own employees. They don't have the kind of conversations because we were football players. They will talk to you. And I learned a lot. They opened up doors. They were instrumental in explaining or making recommendations, teaching that most people don't even get to have an actual conversation like that outside of probably their immediate family. So yeah, it was huge. And when you're trying to walk into, anytime you're in business, it's networking. And the hardest part about networking is getting anybody to listen to you or want to talk to you. Well, there's not bigger icebreaker than, yeah, hey, guess what? I did this, and this. Spend the first 20 minutes there asking you stories, and then you go, hey, by the way, I'm trying to do this, and this. Oh, yeah, all right, cool. I mean, it really was not that simple, but being an ex-football player has afforded me opportunities to talk to much, much smarter people than I could ever want to be. And they took the time of day because I took the time of day when they asked me football questions and team questions. So it was really, really instrumental. Huge, actually.
And I was privileged to watch you, kind of build businesses from the ground up, several types of businesses. Can you kind of share whatever you're comfortable sharing as far as your journey in business? And I know recently you made a great sale. You sold one of your businesses. That's something that's so far beyond me as far as selling a business and things like that. Can you kind of share kind of your progression and kind of, I guess, your journey in business and how you've been able to build, your businesses and outside of football and become a great success?
Well, I mean, just like in sports, a great success. It's what have you done lately? I've had some success. I've got 2 kids. They're healthy. I can pay my bills. But you go back to sports. It's a challenge. You want to, you have an idea or you have something that you think you can do. And just like with sports, you want to grow it. It's that competitive nature. You want to win. Now, as I've gotten older, it's not the same, so to speak, but starting something from nothing and nurturing it and growing it. I mean, sports had a lot to do with that. Yes, the competitive nature. Yes, the education, the University of Kansas, that afforded me a network of people that when there was something that came up I didn't know, I could pick up a phone and say, hey, what do you know about this? Oh, this, and this. I mean, I was very, very fortunate. I mean, not done. I've been pseudo successful. Let's not say super successful, but pseudo successful because of the people I was fortunate enough to meet and the mentors that took the time out of their day to help me and mentor me. And without sports, I don't know. I don't know if that actually would have happened.
Right. Definitely, the value of sports is, goes without saying. We have another question, Kev, and let me see here. Okay, this is one of my favorite questions here. How has having a successful aviation executive as a father? I know your father had to build up his career as well. You can talk about that a little bit. And a successful NFL executive as an uncle, Bill Polian, who is, by the way, in the NFL Football Hall of Fame. How has that influenced your American football journey?
Well, we got to go back to my dad first. Both my dad's side of the family came from literally nothing. Everybody tells a story of the joke went uphill both ways in 3 feet of snow with one sock and holes everywhere. Well, in their case, it was 100% true. One of my favorite stories to tell in general is about my father. My dad started in the upholstery shop, and before he passed away, he was basically running a company. And he's ex-military. I can't speak to what it took for my uncle to become successful. I'll get back to how he helped. But as far as my dad was cut and dry is the best way. There's right and wrong. He was hard, loving, supporting to an extent. But when you come from nothing and you can take care of your family, I mean, literally, they came from nothing. And that wasn't our case. Didn't ever have to worry about being hungry. But, he set a foundation, and he taught me right from wrong. And you had to work for it. Nothing's for free. And that is a life lesson. Still use it and contribute or draw on it to this day. As far as my uncle, he had some insight. In particular, when I got done playing football and what the next step was going to be. And the opportunity was potentially there if I wanted to go into what I guess you would refer to as the family business as far as in professional sports. But he was very realistic with me, and he said the talent gets paid, meaning I'm going to have to go work 90 hours a week just for the opportunity possibly to be able to get an opportunity. Granted, having a famous last name wasn't for me. But he always had sound advice. I will state that. He always had sound advice. But I also had access to him. How many people have access to him?
Yeah, I mean, look, your dad was a successful executive for Learjet, correct? Which is
yes,
they make
sir.
Planes.
Private planes.
That alone, I mean, you said it in the beginning. He had a great ability and discipline, but also knew how to read contracts, which was helpful in your journey. And then to have an uncle who now, back then he wasn't, but he was a GM for the Buffalo Bills when they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. Uncle Bill.
Yes. I was fortunate enough to go to a Super Bowl because of Uncle Bill. I was actually in Buffalo and got to see what celebrity status was because us being college football players, celebrity status is a whole lot different when you're 19 walking through an airport and people are coming up asking for an autograph and you're just kind of staring. But yeah, it was kind of cool. Not going to lie.
I'll never forget when you came to LA to go watch the Buffalo Bills in the Rose Bowl play against the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
And look, what the Buffalo Bills did was I don't know if that's ever been done. I haven't done the research on 4 straight Super Bowls.
No,
Unfortunately,
has not.
they came on. They That's a great accomplishment all by itself. Unfortunately, of course, they didn't. They didn't actually win one. And then your uncle goes from, he goes from Buffalo to Carolina.
Actually, I'm going to tell you what I know. I can't give you the specifics. He went from Buffalo to the NFL front office. And then when the Carolina Panthers became an expansion team, he went there. And then from there, he went to the Indianapolis Colts.
But he actually helped build the Carolina Panthers to reach a Super Bowl with.
I don't think they went to the Super Bowl. I think they went to the championship game, but I could be completely wrong.
Right. But then he goes to Indianapolis. Peyton Manning is his quarterback, and they win the chip, right?
Remember who was arguably should have been. There was a whole thing because a lot of people I remember because my dad actually invited my uncle down to speak at one of his. We'll just call it business meetings, to where that guest speaker comes in, and my uncle came in. It was about, I don't know, a month after Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. He chose Peyton Manning, but a lot of people don't remember that following year he took Edgerrin James. And there was also yes, and there was somebody else that he did, and they ended up being very, very wise and smart picks. I remember that because of that business where they come in and do a presentation, and those were all the questions everybody was asking. Back then, I didn't really pay attention.
And then now, obviously, he's on ESPN a lot now as a commentator. But then his kids decided to get into the football business. So I think you still have your cousin at Notre Dame. Is that right?
No, I think he's at LSU now. Brian, I think he's at LSU.
Oh, he went with Brian Kelly. He went with Kelly.
I think so. I about 99% sure.
Got it. Is his brother still in the business? I know he was a GM for the Falcons, I believe, or in the front office.
Chris was in Indianapolis. He might be with the Falcons. My other cousin, Dennis, I believe, was with the Vikings. Not 100% sure. Don't really follow that kind of stuff because that's their kind of thing. I chose to do my kind of thing.
Well, I know the interesting thing to me is that you're actually probably the biggest Polian there is. You're
physically, absolutely, I am.
I mean, physically, you're 6'5", and I met your uncle. Your uncle, I don't think he's 6 foot, is he? Is he 6 foot?
I'm not going to say anything outside of my dad was the tallest in that side of the family at 5'10".
Gotcha. I met Brian, and Brian wasn't nearly as tall as you. So I just think it's interesting that you have a famous last name in the NFL circles and college football now, but you were the one to get the D1 scholarship, and you were the athlete in the family. That's kind of an interesting dynamic, wouldn't you say?
It is, but I'm sure that my cousins would argue that they are athletic as well. I mean, my mom's side of the family is where I get my height. I've got 3 female cousins that I don't think it was necessarily Division I, but they were pretty top of the line, tennis and a lot of other things. As far as the size that comes from my mom's side of the family, the Polian side of the family, not saying they weren't athletes, never watched them play, but I hear they were pretty good. They just didn't have the height as that I did.
What are the roots for Polian? Is it, if I'm correct, if I'm not mistaken, is it Irish or Scottish?
Oh, it's Irish. Very much Irish.
Okay. Well, if you did that Notre Dame pose, like the Notre Dame mascot, you'd be the largest. I don't know. The Notre Dame mascot, is he a leprechaun or is he just an Irishman?
No, he's totally a leprechaun.
Okay, got it. Well, I doubt that there's any 6'5" leprechauns running around in the world.
I mean, there's been no, there's not, and that's okay actually.
All right, Kev, we'll go on to our next question.
Yes, sir.
Can you share your big three tips or advice for aspiring athletes outside of the U.S. Or even domestically? I know I have a lot of influence with some of the folks who have a desire to come here and play American football. But can you share your top three or your big three tips or advice for aspiring football players, American football players who want to succeed in American football?
Wow. We're not talking about Division I, getting to Division I. We're talking about as being good at the actual sport.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, just like one of the messages that we really consistently try to share is maximizing whatever level your talent has to take you. As you know, my own son, he didn't go Division I. He went NAIA. And we've had kids that go Division III or Division II or 1AA FBS or FCS. And then, of course, FBS, which is Division I. Then we have Power 5 Division I. But the principles don't change much. The talent level is what the difference is. But what would your big three tips or advice be?
Honestly, put in the work. And it's not just the physical running, the lifting. It's understanding the position you're playing. If you're playing D-line, understand. That was one of I was fortunate in high school. I had two really, really good coaches. And they spent more time actually talking about the fundamentals of the particular position more than get off the ball, this, that. I mean, they went into the mental aspect. And we didn't have access to video like they do now. The repetitions, watching your opponent, and put in the time. And it's not just the physical work, it's the mental work. I think you can speak to this better than I can, but the best athlete is not, once you get to the higher level, and the higher level is not going to necessarily be the greatest athlete. It's the one that puts in the work and understanding not just your position, but what you're supposed to do. And those, not just in football, are going to help you in life, whether it be business or a teacher or a coach. It's putting in the work. Can't be lazy. You got to actually set your mind, set goals. I keep forgetting. I didn't even start that. I mean, that was one of the things that I will honestly contribute to sports. Always had goals, not just personal, team, whether it be in high school or college. It's here's our goals. How are we going to make them? How are we going to actually go and do them? And you can take those into your personal life, whether it's business or just a career or whatever you want to do. That is the most amazing thing about sports. And I think it doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion. But that I would take from it. That's huge. Put in the work, and it's not just getting up at 6 a.m. and running. And it's getting your mind right and what it's going to take. Because not just football, any sport, you got to be mentally tough to be successful. It's that simple.
So put in the work, set your goals, and the third one was what? Be mentally tough. Is that?
I'm sorry. You know how I sometimes can get on it. I mean, you have to put in the work, but I'm not saying work is the physical aspect, running, lifting, getting your body right. But you also got to get your mind right. And part of getting your mind right is whether it be watching film or watching film of others. In our generation, they had just started doing it, the NFL series. Remember Howie Long and all those you could watch and you could see their moves and so forth. Nowadays, there's all kinds of things out there. But it's also getting your mind right. You can't go, you got to know what your responsibilities are. I mean, on this play, you have to do this. You can't just line up and say, I'm going to go beat up this guy and win. That's not how it works. You've got to have your body right and your mind right, but you have to be prepared. And being prepared is putting in the work, both physically and mentally. Hopefully I didn't screw that one up.
No, thank you, Kevin. You know, it's really, although we do have a relationship outside of football as friends, I don't take for granted the importance of your time. And at this time, if there's anything else you'd like to share before we close.
Hey, appreciate you having me on. I really do. I do. Thank you. I thank you people for helping me be prepared for this. And I hope your listeners, if they get anything out of this, you got to put in the work, but it's worth it. And football isn't everything, but football is a means to an end as far as the rest of what you can be. And I think I can say you're one and I'm one, and we know lots and lots of other individuals. It's helped us, and it's a special fraternity. How about that? Because not many people can sit around. They want to sit around and have a conversation with you, but not many people can sit around and understand the conversation unless you've been through it. And don't take that for granted.
Definitely, Kevin. Listen, I'd like to encourage you and anyone watching to like and subscribe our page up here in the corner somewhere. Like and subscribe. Check out our Facebook page, American Football Institute Group, as well as our YouTube channel and our IG, Instagram. We're really thankful and appreciate the time to spend with my good friend, Mr. Kevin Polian. And hopefully you guys were able to get something out of my time with Kevin. You guys take care, take charge, and we'll see you guys at the top.